So these are my onions that I harvested a few weeks ago now in a previous video, and they've been drying really nicely on my onion drying rack in the sun. And today I finally got round to preparing them and platting them. It's a nice dry airy sunny day, and it's a good time to do it because they're not going to have any moisture that might have sort of precipitated overnight. And I'm just starting by taking off any of the loose peel that's dried out around the edges of the onions, just the bits that come off fairly easily. And you do need to leave the final layer around the onion because that acts as a sort of protective skin. And also make sure you leave the stalks on. If you find anywhere the stalks have just fallen off or they're not intact, you can just put them in a basket and use them up first. But the ones with good sized onion and the nice long stalks are going to be suitable for platting. You might need to trim the excess roots a little bit. Some of them don't need it, some of them there's quite a lot of soil and roots left on the base, and I usually just take that off with a knife. And once I've got a batch done, I start platting them, and you begin by taking 3 onions and laying these stalks towards you, and just literally beginning to plait the stalks together. Every time you make a fold over, you add another onion in, and you keep doing this all the way up the stalk. I am going to show you a little close-up later on, but you just plait it as though you're plaiting some hair, but each time one goes over, add another onion on top and then secure that by folding the next side over it. And if you keep doing that, what you'll end up is quite a nice tight bundle. That one I think felt a bit soft. Only really choose the best onions for storing this way. Anything that's a bit damaged or a bit soft, I just put them in a bowl and use them first of all. But these are the ones that are going to see me right the way through the winter, so I want them to be good quality, and I don't want any rot to set into the whole bundle. So I just carry on. Usually you tend to find you want to pick smaller onions as you go up the bundle. There just seems to be less and less room, and ideally if you've got a nice set of long stalks at the end, carry on plaiting for a little bit longer after you've put all the onions in. You don't want to overload it because if it's too heavy sometimes the stalks will give way. But you make a nice bundle. There's probably about, I don't know, a dozen, 15 onions in this bunch here. And now I'm just carrying on for a little bit, plaiting up the stem just to make it more secure. But what I'm going to do in order to hang them up is put a piece of string round and tie them really tightly. I cut my string and had it ready, which is a good idea because if you don't, you haven't actually got enough hands to do everything, because you don't really want to let go of this. You need to keep the bundle tight all the time that you're preparing it. So I've done a sort of knot with a loop on it, and now I'm just winding the ends around to try and catch all those loose fibres as much as possible. And then, whoops, I'm going to tie it really, really tightly so that they don't fall out. And the best place to hang these is in a light, airy place, which I'm going to do in a minute. And there we go. So here's my 3 onions that I begin with, and I'm going to then take the stalk on the left, which is currently underneath, and fold it up and over, and then add in another onion, and then the stalk to the right, which is currently underneath, bring that one over and add another onion in, and you just literally carry on doing this as you go along. And here's the ones I've done so far. They'll be staying here to dry off completely, probably for another 3 or 4 weeks. I'll take them indoors once the nights start to get cold and damp and the mornings are too humid, because they'll end up soaking up that moisture and then they won't last very long. But at the moment they're drying a little bit more now that the outer skin's taken off, and they'll last me well into the winter. onions do need a light place. Unlike potatoes, which you should keep in the dark, onions need a light place, otherwise they start to grow. If you keep them in a dark room or a cupboard, it's almost the equivalent of them being underground, and if it's too warm, they'll actually come into early growth, and then you'll lose them. So I shall leave them out till about the end of September, and then bring them into the house where I've got a sort of hanging racket in a cool bedroom.